Hey everybody, before I get started, I just want to mention a couple of ways that you can engage with me on a more personal level. I have a few avenues set up and I keep focusing on one, and I figured why don't I make a short little video talking about all of them real quick before we get into these episodes. So first thing, Patreon. There's a link in the episode description, in every episode description to the Patreon, as well as a video on the feed called Major Announcement that has all the details of what each tier offers and how much they cost. I implore you to check that out. I offer a lot of cool shit for my patrons. Second thing, the Discord channel. There's also a Discord link in the episode description and in every episode description. I have multiple channels set up there for each show that I'm covering, and it's a great way to just engage with me. I have a channel set up for MMA talk as well. I'm a big MMA fan, so if you're an MMA fan, you can check that out as well. There's a link to the Discord in the episode description. And then lastly, the Facebook and Twitter. Social media. Follow me on there. I post news on there. When I say news, I mean like, hey, I'm stopping covering this show. Hey, I'm starting covering this show. Let me know what you think about this. I do live watches of things on Facebook where like I'll check in and say I'm watching so-and-so show, and then I'll like live comment while I'm watching it, and that'll be cool if maybe you watch that show too and you want to watch along with me, or you're watching it later and you will see my thoughts, which are usually pretty entertaining because I'm usually pretty high when I'm writing them. So check out all those links in each episode description, and let's talk about this episode. Peace.
One mic, one mic. Yeah. All I need is one mic. One mic. Yeah. All I need is one mic. One mic. One mic.
Hey everybody, welcome back to One Mic, and today I'm here to talk about season 3, the final season, unfortunately, episode 1 of Apple TV's Ted Lasso, entitled Smells Like Mean Spirit. Title is, of course, a play on the hit Nirvana song Smells Like Teen Spirit, and I think, we see a lot of mean-spirited behavior from the Nate / Rupert / West Ham side of things in this premiere, so that's undoubtedly the reason for the title. This episode, before I talk about it, this episode had a 43-minute runtime. Now, of course, that includes like the shit that Apple puts on that they advertise before the episode starts, the credits, things like that. But we're just gonna talk about runtime. And be clear, I'm not gonna talk about runtime every week. I'm just gonna talk about the runtime now, not how it's broken down, just the 43 minutes as a whole. But I do want to say that I think like the 45-minute runtime for an episode of Ted Lasso, especially given this is the last season, that's like where I want to live. Like that's about the amount of time that I'm comfortable with seeing seeing all of these characters each week. Miss me with the episodes that are like 30 something minutes, sub 40 minutes. I don't need those. Like don't jerk me out of time with this crew and this cast in the final season after only 3 seasons. Don't jerk me out of time with them giving me a 36-minute episode or some shit. This 43-minute episode is already longer than like 90% of the Mayor of Kingstown episodes this season. So keep giving me the 45-minute range. Like I like that. I don't know. You don't get that out of comedies very often, that 45-ish minute runtime, and I like that for this show, especially since it does more than just like fire off jokes. So yeah, let's keep it at that. Let's talk about this premiere, though. I thought this was a really solid premiere. It had some laughs, though I'd say I probably would have liked a little bit more. But again, this was the premiere, and it needed to set up the storyline for this final season, as well as kind of like catching us up on what our characters have been up to in the time since season 2. And we needed that information. So I'm going to start there, and I want to start where the show started, with the opening shot. Just like every other season, I make it sound like there's a lot. Like, just like the other 2 seasons, this season opened up with a close-up shot of a character's face. Season 1 opened and closed with close-ups of Rebecca. Season 2 opened and closed with close-ups of Nate. And this season opened up with a close-up of Ted, so we can presume that the season and the show will also close with a close-up shot of Ted as well. And he's at an airport, and we come to learn that his son Henry's been with him the last 6 weeks, and now he's sending him home. And in typical Ted Lasso fashion, they waste no time hitting us with something that feels encouraging, but is really fucking sad. So we see Ted in the airport, and we think, at least I thought, I can't speak for you guys, I thought I'm seeing him get a text from his wife that ends with "I love you," and I'm like, oh shit, way to go, Ted. Things are over this summer or whatever, things worked out, and now you and the wife are on good terms. Everything's going great. Only to realize he's holding his son's phone. Like, kicking me in the balls like that in the opening scene some real scumbag shit, Ted Lasso. I hadn't appreciated, but that was brilliant because I think that played on our emotions. Like we all were looking at that. I think, like, oh shit, his wife's telling him she loves him. That's great. And then the thing like, here you go, kid, give him the phone. Like, like I think they got us all. I thought that was pretty cool though. We also learned that Ted is still talking to Doc, which I like that. I like having that character continue to be around, even if it's only kind of like, they don't actually have her physically there at the stadium. It's just him picking up the phone and catching up with her, whatever. I still like having her around. I think she's good for Ted. I like her as a character. I like that actress. I saw her in something else. It was I think it was Tales from the Loop on Amazon. It was like a 1-episode thing. I think, or was it no, it was Sandman on Netflix. She was good on that too. It was in 1 episode, but she was good in that too. But he tells her about his feelings surrounding sending his son home, sending his son home without him, and still being in London with the team, the what am I still doing here thing. He starts to have this conversation with Coach Beard as well. And while he's on the phone with her, we see a montage of him kind of like, I don't want to say tearing down because that makes it sound worse than it was, but he's like taking down like a built up fort that they made, that kind of stuff. Essentially tearing down his time with his son to prepare for the upcoming season. And, it felt pretty symbolic, right? Like, well, time as a dad is done. Time to tear this shit. Time to tear down father and build up team. And like, I don't know. I felt that was kind of I think we were meant to have that takeaway, but that was really kind of sad to me. The idea of like, as a parent of 4 kids, and I love my kids. I love them around all the time. The idea of like, oh, I got 6 weeks with my kid. Okay, well now that's over, and now it's time for me to go back to this. Like, the idea of like being around my kid part of the time, and then like now I'm moving on to doing this job. Like, I don't know, man, that feels really shitty to me, and I feel like it's got to be shitty for Ted. And I don't know, that was a kind of a sad montage that I think if you're not paying close attention, it might have been lost on you. The symbolism of like tearing down his good time with his son to start coaching this team, and essentially, instead of being a father, tearing down being a father to his team to start to his son to start being a father to his team. And I don't know, I just thought that was kind of sad. It seems quite feasible actually, and I think this is appropriate for this show because this show loves its bookends, right? Like what I just said with the opening and closing shots of the close-ups. It seems quite feasible that we're gonna open this. We opened this season with Ted's close-up sending his son away at an airport. It feels like a good bookend to the season and to the show to close it with a Ted close-up where like maybe we see his son running toward him at an airport because he's returned home for good. Something like that. I feel like you guys might want to even clip that and save it. I feel like that might be what's going to happen. And, you might want to, when we come back in 12 weeks, and we look at what I said in my video for episode 1, you'd be like, man, that motherfucker's good at what he does. I am. So, moving on. The main focus of this episode is that the media has AFC Richmond finishing last. This bothers Rebecca more than anyone else, but not because she wants the team to win. I mean, she does, but that's not why it bothers her. It bothers her mainly because she wants to beat Rupert, and she cares about her perception. Like how the team is perceived, she ties to herself. So if the team is losing to Rupert's team, she looks at that as I am losing to Rupert, and everyone else is going to see me losing to Rupert. And like that, we already see Rebecca's off to a bad start, perception-wise, on how she looks at the world and how she looks at the team. But everyone else seems to have it out for West Ham too. And why wouldn't they, after what Nate did? Roy in particular, I think, might have an issue. And this is me, I'm digging a little bit here, but when Roy, that's hard to say. When Roy was telling his defense, I think it was a defensive strategy to Ted. He's explaining this 4-4-2 lineup. He kind of like qualifies it by saying like, I might not have all of Nate's fancy tricks and shit, but being solid is what you need when you're the underdog. And like the way he kind of like qualified his advice kind of made me feel like he might have feelings of doubt as to how he's perceived as a coach relative to Nate. Nate was well loved before he became who he became, and it was also considered to be an excellent coach. So Roy coming in to fill those shoes, he's probably having a little bit of doubt And I feel like him bringing up Nate in that moment kind of felt like that. Like, he's like, why'd you have to bring up Nate? So I wonder if Roy's going to have, and Roy in particular, is going to have some issues with West Ham. Speaking of Nate, though, he hasn't changed at all in the time that Ted spent, building Lego stadiums with his son and moving the Nate piece away from everyone else. In that time, Nate has shown not a modicum of growth, not an iota, nothing. He's the same piece of shit he was at the end of season 2. We see him ignoring someone who is kind enough to greet him as he's entering the stadium, only for him to hurry up to his office so he could jerk off while reading positive tweets about himself. Like, Jesus Christ, Nate. And you know what's interesting about Nate? Can you imagine if somebody picked up Ted Lasso in season 3 and has no idea? Like Nate looks like a shitty when I say a shitty character, I don't mean like the character's a bad guy. I mean like the character looks like a bad character if you don't know everything that Nate kind of was beforehand and what happened to turn him into this person. And I still think that the character of Nate leaves a lot to be desired. I'm going to talk about that in a moment, and it's not like just like, oh, I don't like Nate because he's mean to Ted. Like, no, I think the actual character of Nate right now is flawed, but I'll get to that in a moment. But yeah, him just like running off and like looking at tweets about himself and like talking, like saying terrible things to people for no reason. I feel like somebody would look at that like, this is your bad guy? Like, this isn't very creative. And it's not, but I'll get into that in a moment. Actually, I'll get into that right now. I'm looking at my notes like, oh, this is that moment. But yeah, this is the one potential problem that I see for this season. And it's like, it's a potential problem. It may not become one. There's a lot of different directions that this can go, but I do want to talk about it just in case this is the direction that it goes. And I just want to get my disapproval out here ahead of time so I don't have to harp on it while it's happening. But one thing that has always helped the, I think, almost too sweet nature of this show, and I say too sweet, I just mean like that, like that kind of feeling you get, has been the counterbalance of a good villain. And, that's regardless of whether or not that's Roy, like in season 1, or Jamie, and also in season 1 and season 2. But it looks like they're giving almost like face turns to both Roy and Jamie. And for those who may not be aware, the vernacular face turn is a term that's used in professional wrestling. When you have a bad guy character and then you want to make him into a good guy character, like for a time being, you guys all know The Rock. For the time being, there was a time where The Rock had a heel turn, but The Rock was always a face, a good guy. So if you want to turn a good guy into a heel, you have him attack another good guy, and vice versa, right? Or the reverse of that, if you want to do the opposite. And they seem to be giving face turns to Roy and Jamie, which I'm not opposed to. I mean, that's evolution, right? Everything these characters have experienced in seasons 1 and 2 would amount to them becoming more mature and having some growth in season 3. I don't mind that. But if you're going to take away a villain like Jamie, for instance, to turn him into a good guy, you need to fill that void with another character that I love to hate. So like Jamie was a piece of shit, but I love the Jamie character for the show, right? And you're probably all sitting there like, Nate and Rupert are the bad guys for this season. Duh, you stupid fuck. But let me ask you this. I said characters you love to hate. Even when they were being assholes, we liked Roy and Jamie as characters, did we not? Y'all enjoying Nate and Rupert? I don't know, man. I kind of feel like you can't be, because I'm not. Like, the villainy levels from Rupert and Nate are so off the charts that I can't tell if I should respect it or be insulted. Like, do you think I'm this dumb that I need this heavy-handed of examples of how these are the bad guys? Or are you leaning so much into it that I'm supposed to be looking like, yeah, they're paying homage? Like, they're wearing all black all the time in this episode. The press conference, the West Ham press conference, it looked like a Blacked Raw video. And if you don't already know what that is, don't Google it. But like, where it's like filmed in the dark with like this one key light on the subject, like that's what that shit looked like. And then you juxtapose that with Ted's press conference, it's like well lit and shit. And then Rupert's office is all super dark and sinister looking. Everything's black and sleek and modern looking, complete with a fucking Emperor Palpatine menacing glance Death Star window. And I'm just like, this is really fucking heavy-handed. Like, I get it, they're bad guys. Like, you don't have to give me such like a heavy pour of bad guy ingredients into my drink. Like I understand. I understood last season that Nate was a bad guy. I understood in season 1 that Rupert was a bad guy. I don't need this. Like, but then again, I'm like, okay, are they treating me like I'm dumb? Or am I actually supposed to be like, look, yo, these motherfuckers actually look like the Empire from Star Wars? Like, am I supposed to be looking at this almost as like a satire? Like, these guys are supposed to be fucking Emperor Palpatine and Darth Vader. Like, the Darth Vader storyline even kind of works for Nate. Good guy turned bad. Like, I mean, and corrupted by the older influence, Rupert. Like, I don't know. Like I said, I don't know if they're treating me like I'm dumb or if I should be sitting here like, yo, this is really Star Wars right now. But you know, when I talk about Nate and Rupert not being a very imaginative or entertaining or creative kind of bad guy, you know, Nate's super mean behavior, I felt like it was a lot more unimaginative in this episode. You know, if we're gonna exchange Jamie's nuanced and layered bullying for go stand by the dum-dum line, it's gonna be a real long fucking season, y'all. Like, this is not gonna work, yo. Like, that shit was terrible. Like, everything he did felt like mean for the sake of mean, which they've done that for that character. That's not a change, but I don't know, it felt more like they feel like that's all they need to do is just have Nate say shitty things and be shitty. And like, I feel like I'm gonna need more effort than go stand by the dum-dum line. That's not working for me. So like, but again, I don't understand fully the plan because it's only the first episode. I don't know what Nate's character arc is gonna be like. So, and this show does have a habit of kind of like subverting expectations. So it might not end with Nate becoming, you know, Nate learning a lesson and becoming, you know, going back to season 1 Nate again or something like that. I don't know. All I know is they were really heavy-handed with, hey, these guys are the villains. Maybe you should notice that. Really heavy-handed with that. And I thought that Nate's lines were real fucking lazy in this episode. But that's my only complaint. And even then, it's kind of like, it's one of those things where like it really relies on what direction they plan on taking it for the whole season, not just kind of like this small sample size of this one episode. So it's one of those things like, I'm going to put it out there. It's kind of like, I see a potential problem here, but not necessarily anything we need to worry about right now. Keely has her own PR firm now. She spends $200 a week on flowers just for vibes. Like, I don't know. Her CFO, which does not stand for corporate flying object, isn't a big fan of her expenditures either. And I liked how once Keely started crying, like she shows how she like frosted kind of like the windows or whatever, and she starts crying, and she says she's so busy that she has to schedule time to cry alone, and then she's like, and then I double booked you, referring to Rebecca. I think that was probably funnier for me than it probably was for anyone else. I don't know, but like, there's something about, like, for those of us who spend a lot of time booking and attending meetings, the idea of like double booking your time, double booking time by accident is funny enough as it is. But double booking like my best friend with my cry time, I don't know, that was just really funny to me. I do love her office though. I thought it looked cool. And it looked very Keely, right? Like that looked like an office that Keely would have. You know what I don't love though? And this isn't a complaint. This is me as a fan speaking about the something that's happening on the show. I don't love Keely and Roy breaking up. I don't think any of us do. I don't love them telling Phoebe. I don't love Roy's doubts about it. I love none of that shit, man. I'm not a fan. And I'm not a fan. This is not me as like, I don't want to call myself a critic. I think it elevates what I'm doing here. I'm just talking about a TV show into my iPhone. I don't want to call myself a critic, but like, this isn't me coming from a critical perspective. This is just me as a fan of the show. Just like, I like seeing Roy and Keely together. But most importantly though, I'm curious what they're going to do with it. You know, this opens up the idea of Roy being maybe like reverting back to season 1 Roy, being a little less kind. And, you know, it also opens up Jamie to potentially get back with Keely, which is another season 1 callback. But do we want our characters to regress like that? I don't think we do. So I don't think that's going to happen. But then also, you could still put Roy back single and Jamie back with Keely, but still not have the characters regress. Like they could, Roy could be focused on being a great coach, and that could be his struggle. Jamie could be right back, you know, Jamie could try to be a good guy, and that could be his struggle, because being a good man is hard for Jamie. But Unfortunately, the idea of Jamie and Keely being in a healthy relationship where Jamie is a good guy, that doesn't really appeal to me either. Does that appeal to you guys? Like, I feel like Jamie in a healthy relationship with Keely is like, oh yeah, that's good for those two characters, but for us as fans of the show, I don't like how much enjoyment is that. Like, I like Jamie as an asshole. Like, I do. I don't like assholes, but for the purposes of this show, I like Jamie in that role, man. So, but again, who knows where they're gonna go with it. So let's talk about the end. The episode ends with two scenes that are thematically similar, and they run alongside each other, kind of cross-cutting back and forth. The two scenes. So Ted takes one is with Ted, one is with West Ham. Ted takes the team to a sewer, and they're photographed getting in the sewer by a construction worker who recognizes Roy. I love that. Hey, Roy Kent? It's like, fuck off, or some shit like that. But Ted essentially compares the team to a sewer, and he's like, but in a positive way. Saying like, hey, you guys should act like you have a ton of interconnected tunnels too. You feed off of each other. If you need some positivity, you get it from somewhere else. And then you let all the negative shit just flow through you and out. Just let all the poop-a flow right out of you, right? And the picture of them getting in the sewer hits social media, and it's brought up at the West Ham press conference. And right after Nate panics, and he like hides under the table, like what the fuck? And he can only center himself by thinking about his own abuse, spitting on the floor. Like, I can't get over the spitting thing. I really can't. It's like, I know why they do it. I still can't get over it. Spitting on the floor and then proceeding to berate people again. That's the only way. Like, Nate, nah. Like, now Nate is in his happy place being unjustifiably cruel to people is Nate's happy place. So now he's centered again, right? After he spit on the floor and he shits on a reporter. And this other reporter, who I'm gonna specify that she's a woman for a specific reason we're gonna get to in a moment. She asked him about the picture of AFC Richmond getting in the sewer, and he follows up his they're projected to finish 20th because there's no 21st joke. He follows that up with, well, I guess they got to trade in the sewer because their coach is so shitty. And like, there's a couple of things I want to talk about here. First, I love how after he says this, the woman who asked him the question, the reporter, she looks at him like she wants to suck him dry right there at the fucking press conference for being a piece of shit. Then she looks at Rupert like, I approve of how shitty this guy is. Then Rupert looks at Nate, and Nate jizzes in his pants over the positive reinforcement about being a piece of shit. And I'm just like, this is so heavy-handed. Like, what the fuck? It was like, that was even more so than the wearing the all black and all that heavy-handed. That I thought was too much. Like, even all the other stuff, I was kind of like, okay, maybe this is satirical, they're paying homage to Star Wars, and it's meant to be this way. But the whole thing of like her looking at Nate like she wanted to fuck him, then looking at Rupert like, I want to fuck you too for choosing this guy, and then Rupert looking at Nate like, I want to fuck you because now she wants to fuck me, and then Nate busting nut his pants. Like, all of that was terrible. Like, I did not like. That was way too much. And then another juxtaposition between Ted and Nate happens here that I think is a lot more subtle. About the stuff, it's the same stuff that I've been talking about this whole time about the wearing light versus black and all that kind of shit, right? Both of them talk about the sewer, but Ted puts a positive spin on it. Something that most people would struggle finding something positive to say about. While Nate immediately makes a shit joke, which is where everyone would instantly default to. And this isn't a huge deal, like, oh, I love this, is brilliant. But like, I'd like my comparisons to be a bit more subtle like that, and not go stand by the dum-dum line. So like, that's a little bit more what I'm going for, and not like, hey, let's dress them all in black and put them in the dark, and let's dress all of AFC Richmond in vibrant colors and put them in bright light. Like, that feels like fucking like intro to film freshman year of college strategy. Whereas the juxtaposition of like how Ted looks at things vis-a-vis a sewer versus how Nate looks at things, that's a little bit more what I'm looking for. So Ted's later doing his own press conference after Rebecca basically asked him to shit on Nate and Rupert, and we know it's because she's more concerned about perception than anything else. But Ted instead compliments Nate, wishes him well, and then proceeds to even berate himself. And the lesson here, I think, is to be yourself, because how corny is that? Because Keeley messages Rebecca like, congrats on letting Ted be himself. And then we see that the media's eating it up. They're all having a good time laughing. Then Nate sees tweets that essentially amount to like Ted being a class act and being the bigger man. And then he gets mad about that because you know how his mood like comes and goes with tweets. And then he gets a text from his mom like, yeah, we saw you on TV. And he's like, oh, now I feel better. Your dad's mad, you're cursed. God damn it. And you know, the whole being nice pays off message here gave me a couple cavities, but like, I fuck with it. It's fine. Until being mean-spirited pays off for Nate, who we get to see get a new whip from Emperor Palpatine as he watches from his Death Star window that he threw Samuel Jackson out of. Until being mean-spirited paid off for Nate, I was fine with the couple cavities over the overly nice shit, but that didn't bother me or anything like that. That Nate got a new car that tracked, like I'm not mad about that. And the shot of Rupert looking out the window is when I finally went, okay, they might be doing this on purpose. I have to be getting, like, they're giving me Star Wars vibes on purpose, right? And I'm gonna wrap up this unusually long video for a comedy series. See, I'm sure all the rest of them aren't gonna be this long, but I had to talk about a lot of the stuff they were doing thematically here. The episode ends with us learning that Ted's wife potentially has a new man named Jake who bought an infinity gauntlet, the same one I got. I'm 41 years old. I got that same fucking infinity gauntlet that this stranger bought for Ted's son. Fuck Jake. Like, he could be the show's new villain. You don't buy another man's kid a fucking infinity gauntlet, you asshole. Like, fuck Jake, man. Like, Jake should be the new Jamie. Like, I already hate him. I don't even know what he looked like. I already hate him. So I'll close out with one quick thought, and you guys can let me know about what you think about this in the comments. I mentioned earlier that I think they'll end this season with Ted going home, you know, the book ending of the shots. Does Rebecca know that he makes the biscuits himself yet? I can't, like, I mean, it's been a long time since the previous 2 seasons. I didn't do a rewatch. If she doesn't know, that would be a cool thing for them another thing for them to end the season with as well. Like, if he leaves, like I said, he leaves to go home or whatever, one of the last things he tells her before he leaves, or one of the last things that she discovers before he leaves is that he makes the biscuits. Like, I think that'd be cool. So let me know what you guys think about that theory. Let me know what you guys think about this episode and my minor issues that could end up becoming major ones, but might not be, and we might just supposed to be thinking Star Wars on purpose. Let me know what you think about that. I will see you guys next week for episode 2, and until then, peace.